All right, let me get into my other. There we are. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to Talk, Listen, Share. This is a Shay's Warriors educational and learning group. Oh, there we go. Thank you. It's been a while since I've actually introduced anybody for us. Shay's Warriors is a 501c3 with an all-volunteer board of directors that was formed here in the Coachella Valley to help our cancer community thrive after active treatment is over. The mission of Shay's Warriors is to inspire, to inform, and empower through health, fitness, and the mind-body connection. We like to help heal survivors and their families through a national network of support. Our Talk, Listen, and Share community was formed as a part of an online educational outreach to support each other through survivorship and thrivership. Talk, Listen, and Share is hosted by all board members and our cancer community's special guests, which we'll find out more about tonight. It is hosted every second and fourth Wednesday of the month by founders, Shay Moraga, that's me, hello everybody, our amazing Rosemary Flannery, she is a retired RN and BSN, and also Dr. Sonia Fang, owner and proprietor of the Live Well Clinic, specializing in integrative cancer care. We look forward to including special guest speakers, and if you ever want to come on, you have some inspiring stories of hope, please reach out to us at any time. We want to provide open and honest conversations between guests and help build emotional, physical, and social realities that have become part of life and moving forward. This week, we are, thank you. This week, we are welcoming back Holly Thrasher, who is the author of 2 books, the breast cancer reconstruction in the first, which is Bittersweet, a vulnerable photographic breast cancer journey and educating women about breast implant illness. And also her second book, which she just recently came out with, I believe it was last year, Bye Bye Boobs. My real ones tried to kill me and my fake ones made me sick. Holly's empowering story is both devastating and uplifting, but she never loses her sense of humor as she openly shares her experiences with body image and how she went from grief and loss to acceptance and love for her post-cancer body. Holly is dedicated to supporting women going through breast cancer, breast implant illness, and she is an advocate of aesthetic flat closure as a safe and valid choice after a mastectomy. Holly is living flat and fabulous with no evidence of cancer in the California desert with her husband Wiley and their son Vance. Find out more about Holly at hollykthrasher.com, and we'll put that up for you later on after our event.
Sounds good.
Tonight's presentation relays the individual experience and decisions of the author. It is not a recommendation for any type of medical advice for cancer treatment or surgery by Shay's Warriors.
All right. Hi, thank you everyone for having me. I go off a script. I like to write out all of my thoughts ahead of time because I do have a lot to say and I don't want to veer off from our topic. So let me get right into it. Thank you all for having me. I want to share my journey with you and talk about our topic of grief and loss and how it's affected me personally. If at any time any of you want to ask me questions, please just interrupt me and I'm happy to answer them. I also just want to acknowledge that this is my own personal experience and that none of this is one size fits all. We have to make decisions based on our own comfort level and what is best for each one of us. I am not a doctor, so talk to yours about all of your options. I am a breast cancer survivor and author of 2 self-published books detailing my journey. Also, My son, my 20-year-old son, finished his college exams on Zoom today. So if you hear him yelling in the background at some point, just ignore that. He's very happy to be done.
Yay!
I know. So I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2015 at the age of 46. I had stage 2 infiltrating ductal adenocarcinoma, one of the most common breast cancers with an 85% survivability. So I was told it was the kind of breast cancer that you want, which always struck me as a really awful thing to say to a newly diagnosed woman, because there is no breast cancer that you want. The diagnosis came after ignoring a breast lump for almost 2 years that I was convinced was just a blockage in my duct, but actually turned out to be a stage 2 tumor. If you do the math, I had already had the tumor for at least 2 years earlier at the age of 44, and possibly even earlier than that. I am so very grateful that in my time of denial, it hadn't spread to my lymph nodes. Denial is always a very bad idea when it comes to cancer. Breast cancer turned my entire world upside down, and I have spent the last 5.5 years trying to right the ship and move forward with my life, which has not always been easy. After my cancer diagnosis, it was hard not to focus on the colossal amount of loss I had suffered from that one sentence uttered by my doctor at my follow-up appointment. Your biopsy came back positive for breast cancer. I don't have any recollection of what she said after those words, and I was all alone because I just didn't think there was going to be anything wrong, so I didn't have my husband come with me. It was hard to imagine at the time the fallout that would precede that office appointment, but it was also unavoidable. Tough choices had to be made about my treatment that would affect every aspect of my life and the life of my husband and then teenage son, Vance. My extended family and all of my friends would be burdened too. There was no way to get out of this unscathed. My doctors wanted me to immediately go into surgery and remove one or both breasts. They gave me 1 week until surgery, but I asked for 2. How in the world was I supposed to make these huge life-changing decisions in such a short span of time? It was crazy, but I did it. I told the breast surgeon at my first appointment that I wanted a total double mastectomy, and yes, I was 100% sure of that choice. The first major tangible loss as a result of my diagnosis was my childhood dream. I knew within the hour of being told that I had breast cancer that working 60+ hours a week was no longer going to be possible as I navigated my new reality and tried to assist in saving my own life. I made the very difficult choice to close my 6-year-old nostalgic candy store, Kingston's Candy Company, along with my private label wholesale candy company, Candy Makes Life Sweeter. I needed those burdens gone so I could focus on my treatment. Just hours before my diagnosis, my candy businesses were not considered burdens and were a benefit to me. But cancer changed that. And in that moment, my life mattered more than my businesses. Closing them meant that I was losing 6 years of hard work, the loss of our savings that we had invested, the loss of the daily joy that the candy store brought me, my teenage employees that were like family. I wouldn't have them in my everyday life anymore. My adoring customers, young and old, and I was losing the sweet nickname the little town of Ojai, California had given me, the Candy Lady. How quickly my reality was changing. So with closing both of my businesses, my family lost my income and the burden of our finances fell solely to my husband. The town of Ojai lost my business fees and sales tax for my store. Parents and children flooded into my store to ask how they could help. Kids cried in the candy store. And when they heard that their favorite sweet store was going away, I was heartbroken. It was all heartbreaking. And it felt like I was causing all of this misery and that it was all my fault. There are many more losses just from the closing of my businesses that had a ripple effect in the small community that I was a part of. Too many to mention here. During all of this cancer-inducing chaos, my husband stepped up in such a major way. He took care of me and our teenage son, making all the meals, doing all the cleaning, driving to and from school, grocery shopping, transporting me to and from all of my appointments, all while working a very demanding and time-consuming full-time job. My life had felt so on track before cancer, and then everything was veering off course like a runaway train that I couldn't stop. At the time of my diagnosis, I had just reached my goal of losing 30 pounds of baby weight. Ignore the fact that my son was actually 14 years old when I decided to finally get rid of the baby weight. But I was doing it, and I did it. I was down to a size 6 and feeling so proud of my body and my looks. I was doing yoga, swimming laps, and was feeling really good about life in general. I had started wearing a bikini for the first time in my life and was finally letting go of insecurities about my body. Then came the cancer. I had a very hard time reconciling the way I looked and felt with the reality that I had breast cancer and was actually sick, because I didn't look sick. My mother died of cancer when she was only 64, and I was 33 with an 18-month-old son at the time. I still feel that loss every single day. She chose no medical because of her faith in the Christian Science Church, of which she was a member her whole life. We are pretty sure that it was breast cancer that took her, but can never really be 100% sure because she only had one blood test done and decided to rely on prayer only. My aunt, her sister, was diagnosed a couple of years before me, and her treatment was successful, and I just had dinner with her over the weekend. It was the first time together since COVID started. Our family was no stranger to breast cancer, even though we are all BRCA negative, and there didn't seem to be any genetic reason at the time for us to have breast cancer. Knowing what I knew, I very easily made the decision to have a double mastectomy because I didn't want to remove one breast and then possibly go through this all over again sometime in the future. I also wanted to survive to see my son grow up. Vance was a freshman in high school at the time of my diagnosis. I desperately wanted to make it to his high school graduation, see him go to college, and hopefully into adulthood. I had a lot to live for, including a husband that I had married in 1994 and was still is the love of my life and my best friend. I was given more than one option for what to do after the mastectomy. I was offered deep surgery, which would have used my own tissue and blood supply from my abdomen to create breast mounts, but wasn't really a good option at the time because I had just lost a lot of weight and I had a newly thin body. I was also offered LD flap surgery that would have done something similar to DEEP, but using my back muscles and tissue brought forward to create breasts. Both types of those reconstruction surgeries would have taken 10 to 12 hours to complete, would mostly likely entail multiple surgeries and would affect other parts of my body. They also had a much longer recovery time and pretty significant failure rates. So I opted for what I was told would be the easiest option at the time, breast reconstruction with implants. Looking back, I now realize that the whole focus was on my breasts, losing them and then recreating them. I believed at the time that I needed breasts to keep being a woman, so that's what I did as fast as I could. Breast implants were supposed to be my silver lining to breast cancer. They were supposed to restore my body image, replace my loss, and help me move on after cancer. But that's not exactly what happened, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. Cancer brings so much grief and loss. You are affected by physical things like changes in your body shape and size, the loss of one or more breasts. Perfectly healthy skin is now covered in scars or damaged by radiation, all of which is a lot to deal with, while also grieving the possibility that you may not survive any of it, and you could ultimately still lose your life no matter what you or your doctors do. It's the very worst experience of my life. After a double mastectomy, 4 rounds of chemo, breast tissue expanders, breast implants, and surgery to remove my ovaries and fallopian tubes, I was exhausted and feeling the lowest I had ever felt. I had completed treatment, but was a shadow of my former self. My hair, eyebrows, and eyelashes had all grown back in thinner after being gone for months. Now in menopause, my skin was feeling very dry. My nails had weird ridges and cracking. My libido had left the building entirely, and my body started to feel like it was aging at a rapid pace. So many permanent changes in such a short time frame upended my day-to-day life. It was hard to look in the mirror, and I was still so young, only in my 40s. I started to wonder if I would make it to my 50s, or even if I would have the opportunity to outlive my mother and into my 60s. So many thoughts were pulsing through my brain all the time. The stress created by all of the losses my family and I were incurring was overwhelming. I realized that both of my sisters now feared for their breasts and their lives, and their daughters felt the fear too. I found my vocabulary now consisted of regular rants that included 4-letter words I didn't used to utter. I was trying to keep it all together. At the same time, that little voice in my head was telling me that my scars were ugly and that the 20 pounds I gained after getting breast implants was disgusting. The person attached to that inner voice was broken, and the self-deprecating messages seemed relentless. Browse your computer or phone, walk down any street, or go shopping for clothes, and you will be bombarded by images of young, thin, perfect female specimens to compare yourself to. The photoshopped images of perfection with heaving breasts, tiny waists, and no wrinkles are something that we are all so regularly subjected to that we rarely even notice them anymore. But they are there, and they are subliminally training our self-worth from a very young age. Take our existing self-esteem issues and then add in a cancer diagnosis that comes with surgery, scarring, breast removal, hair loss, weight gain, or drastic weight loss, chemo-induced menopause, and all of the effects that cancer treatments can cause in our bodies. And what are we left with? We are left with body image issues that were probably already there, but are now compounded by our cancer treatment results and what is expected of us in society as women. It's all brutal. If that wasn't bad enough, I realized that cancer was also affecting my family's relationships, friendships, and other forms of support. Some people stepped up and others stepped away. And you can't fault them because this was life and death stuff. And a lot of people just cannot deal with that. I get it. Looking at your own mortality at a young age, or at any age really, is terrifying. My cancer reminded others that this could happen to them too. A lot of my support group just assumed that the ending of my treatment meant that we were all done with this entire topic, but it never ends. That's why it is so important to keep asking for support and reaching out after cancer. The complete absence of some people that I thought would be there for me was baffling and upsetting. But I was surprised by the immense amount of support from other people that I never expected would be there. The loss I personally felt the most was the loss of control and the loss of my sense of peace. I was getting a crash course in the impermanence of life. I now understood that this life was totally out of my control, and I could either run and hide or I could come to some sort of understanding with my new sense of fear. For the first 3 years after my diagnosis, I was continually plagued with worry that even the slightest ache or pain I was experiencing was my cancer coming back, or thoughts that maybe I had developed a new kind of cancer. I was happy to be seeing my oncologist every 3 months for the first 4 years because I didn't want her to miss anything. When she switched me to every 6 months, I felt lost and questioned this decision. I will never get back that feeling that everything is fine and there's nothing to worry about. It's hard to explain the reality of cancer to someone that hasn't actually been personally affected by it. But that little bit of fear never leaves you once you've had cancer. You are changed in so many ways. The losses really stack up, and at times it is really hard not to focus on just the losses. But over time, I have realized that the only way through or around all the grief and loss is to start to accept it. I've realized that the only way to deal with it is to go right through it, all of it. Shoving it down or pushing it away doesn't make it go away. I had to confront it head on. Accepting it doesn't mean you are fine all the time, and it also doesn't mean that you are okay with this awful experience. What acceptance has meant to me is making small tweaks in the way that I think so I can continue to move forward and live my life without drowning in the negativity and fear that comes from what sometimes feels like an insurmountable amount of losing. While I was still in the middle of the treatment and surgeries, I started writing about all of this in journals. I had never been a journal writer, but several people suggested that it might be helpful. It was helpful. It was cathartic, and it was just for me in the beginning, but it eventually morphed into a book that I later hoped would be helpful for other women navigating through this awful experience. I had always been terrified of speaking in groups and avoided it, if possible, pre-cancer. But writing about my cancer journey and sharing all of the vulnerable breast photos of me from beginning to end gave me my voice. It taught me to advocate for myself and to speak up when something didn't sound right to me. Writing my first book empowered me to want to support other women, and the passion that came with my new understanding pushed me into the public arena. I was surprised that I started to say yes to speaking engagements. And the more I did, the more I wanted to keep sharing. And I actually realized that I really enjoyed it. All of the treatments and surgeries feel like they take forever, and you have to be so patient waiting for test results and doctors to book appointments. I began to feel like I needed a final chapter to all of this, and I also didn't like looking at the puffy red keloid scars every morning in the mirror. I associated the scars with all of the bad memories attached to my surgeries and treatments. I wanted to look at something pretty, something inspiring. So after my breast treatments were done, my reconstruction was completed, and my implants placed, I had a tattoo artist in Santa Barbara cover my scars with beautiful pink cherry blossom tattoos. My husband, Wiley, had been documenting my cancer journey with photos, and I began to use those vulnerable breast photos in my journals to share and demystify the process of mastectomy and reconstruction that too many of us will go through. My first book, Bittersweet, A Vulnerable Photographic Breast Cancer Journey, was published and launched in October 2018. I've got a copy of it right here. This is it, right here. And that's actually a friend of mine who's an artist, Vera Long in Ojai, did a pastel portrait of me for the cover. And it's actually a huge framed piece in my house. And then we used it for the cover of the book. I was terrified to share the photos of my chest with the world, but also felt compelled to do it. I wanted women to know that they weren't alone in their struggles that come with cancer. And I wanted everyone to see the reality of it. Cancer is not pretty. No amount of pink bows can make it okay. It's terrible and devastating. I found that the writing was helping, but I needed more support to wrap my mind around all of the PTSD-inducing trauma that I found myself swimming in after everything was finished. I joined a local cancer support group called Ojai Cares and found immediately that talking and listening to other cancer survivors in a supportive setting was just what I needed. I could speak openly, I could cry, I could say things I didn't want to share with Wiley or close friends because it would probably distress them, and I didn't want to do more of that since I knew that they were already distressed going through this whole thing with me. Going every week to the support group allowed me no longer feel alone. And it was so helpful to see other survivors that were thriving after cancer. I realized that I too could survive and thrive. And so I began to model my post-cancer journey after those people that I was meeting in the group. The final chapter in my first book, Bittersweet, has photos of me and my reconstructed breast implants covered with beautiful cherry blossom tattoos. I am smiling and moving on with my life after cancer. At the time, my self-esteem had taken a pretty giant hit, but the cherry blossom tattoos allowed me to reclaim my chest and begin to admire it again. I thought I had fully navigated the loss and dealt with the grief and sadness from everything we had endured as a family. I was over all of it. I was ready to leave it in the dust. But sadly, I wasn't done yet. While on my book tour in 2018, I was plagued with exhaustion, illness, and the realization that something was really wrong with me. I struggled to complete tasks, and some days I had trouble getting out of bed. I felt like I was walking around in a fog. It took me many consultations with doctors who ran many blood tests and rolled their eyes at my complaints. Everyone I talked to blamed my symptoms on menopause or the long-term side effects of chemo or my age. I was only 50. I didn't feel like I should be feeling, like I was 90 at the time. It took me quite a while to figure out what was actually wrong with me, and it wasn't what I expected, but thankfully it was not cancer again. Thanks to a group on Facebook, I discovered my 3-year-old breast implants were making me sick. And I was told by a consulting surgeon that I was having an adverse reaction to them and they needed to come out and I should not replace them. If he knew about it, why didn't I? I was the one with them in my body. It was all pretty shocking at the time. I felt betrayed by my medical professionals because the over 30 symptoms I was suffering from had never been discussed with me prior to making the decision to putting breast implants in my body. The symptoms were known as breast implant illness, or BII for short. Nobody warned me that this was a possibility. I was fearing that my cancer might come back, and here I was suffering as a result of my reconstruction choice. I felt devastated at the idea that I was going to have to deconstruct my chest and in the process cut up and remove parts of my tattoos, the symbols of my healing and resilience. It was hard not to feel deceived and, at the time, grief-stricken. I knew that if I removed my breast implants and reconstructed to flat to get my health back, I was reopening the trauma and loss I had already experienced the first time around. I decided I was going to have to take a proactive approach to my body image. I couldn't live flat and not embrace it. I started standing in the bathroom mirror naked and really taking a good look at my body, but without judgment. I'm sure you all agree with me when I say that that is very, very hard to do. Instead of judgment, I made the conscious decision to show up for myself with compassion and love, and I started to address myself and my body with kindness. My candy store landlord, Ron Polito, told me early on in my journey, be gentle with myself, is what he told me. It was so profoundly simple, but just what I needed to hear. And I revisited that idea over and over again in my healing. Sadly, COVID took Ron from his friends and family a couple months ago. I will always remember his kind words that gave me the courage to tell that little voice in my head to sit down and shut up. Every day for the weeks leading up to my explant surgery, I started to question societal views about my body. I really started looking at the ads and image messaging that were all around me. I started to see the truth about these corporations' motives to make me feel bad about my body in order for them to sell me products. And that would supposedly make me feel better, but in reality did the exact opposite. I vowed to show them what beauty really is. Morning after morning, I told myself in that mirror how perfect I was. You are beautiful. You are perfect. You don't need breasts to be a woman. You are enough. I no longer had my mother or my grandmother to be cheerleaders, so I stepped in and told myself out loud every single day that I was strong, brave, and I was beautiful. My grandmother was taken by cancer 7 years after my mother, and so was her brother, my Uncle Jimmy. My grandfather had cancer when I was younger. My niece had thyroid cancer in her teens, and my uncle is currently battling stage 4 melanoma. I have nothing good to say about cancer. Cancer has caused a lot of suffering in my family. But my defiance and my compassion for all that I had been through started to change that little voice in my head. If it started to express doubts, I stood up for myself and pushed it down. And I kept doing that until I actually believed it. I stopped just saying, I am worthy. And I actually started to believe that I was. Since my first book, Bittersweet, left my readers with the impression that my life and breasts had been restored and I was happy and healthy after breast reconstruction, I had to write a sequel, letting women know that breast implants do come with possible side effects and possible life-threatening problems, but also that you can be okay with your body after cancer. I launched my second book, Bye Bye Boobs, My Real Ones Tried to Kill Me and My Fake Ones Made Me Sick, in March of 2020. And this is the cover of my second book. Oh, it's a little hard to see, maybe if I pull it back like that. The lighting's a little bad there, but that's my second book. It was exactly 2 years after my first book came out. I wanted to share my new reality and show that aesthetic flat closure is a really good option after mastectomy. Approximately 44% of women choose no reconstruction after breast cancer. Had I known that flat was only going to be one surgery instead of 6, I'd like to think I would have avoided all of the pain, anguish, and recovery from each surgery and just gone flat from the get-go. I wish one or more of my doctors would have educated me about flat closure after mastectomy. It was the option I was never given, and it's what I ended up with. My new book launch timing wasn't exactly perfect because COVID shut down my second book launch tour and all of my in-person events before I even got started. That hasn't stopped me from continuing to share this experience online and through multiple Facebook groups with thousands of women that are experiencing similar symptoms and issues as a result of choosing implants. The reality is, I lost my breasts twice and had to grieve the loss twice. The first time around was after my double mastectomy in 2015 from cancer. The second time was after my breast implant removal in 2019, exactly 2 years ago. It was bad the first time, but the second time was re-traumatizing and left me feeling very angry and resentful. I also had to wait an entire year to have my tattoos fixed because a lot of skin and tissue was removed, and I now had missing blossoms that needed to be restored to their empty branches. Luckily, I had joined several flat groups on social media ahead of my explant and was able to see thousands of women living their lives in color, as Shay's warrior says. They were laughing, crying, smiling, hugging, loving, sharing photos of their bodies and scars. They were being real and truthful about how they were feeling in their journeys, and they were all flat. What a gift. It helped me reframe my newest loss into acceptance. I wish I had a magic wand that could release all of the grief, loss, and trauma that women experience as a result of cancer, but I don't, and I can't. What I can do is show up and share. I hope that me showing up today allows you to feel like you can show up for others who need you. I think in the beginning of my cancer journey, I thought that I would get through my surgeries and treatments and everything would go back to the way it was. Things would be normal again and I would feel exactly the same. But as I progressed through all of it, I realized that I wasn't going to be the same person after cancer, and that there would never be a way to get back to my life before all of this happened. I had to realize that I was different, my family was different, and our lives would be different moving forward. We had a new normal, and I definitely grieved for our old carefree life, but I tried to focus on the fact that I still had my life. I am not grateful for cancer, even though I think it's taught me a lot of really great lessons, but it has taught me that I have a finite amount of time here and I want to really live it. I found that in any traumatizing event, you have to feel the losses as they come, move through that grief, find acceptance and support where you can, and live the time that you have. None of us know what that timeline looks like, so make it count in whatever way feels good for you. My own feelings of self-worth, beauty, femininity, and self-confidence were shaken to the core by my cancer diagnosis. But with a lot of work and a lot of support, I have managed to come to a place of acceptance, peace, and I dare say, self-love for my post-cancer flat-chested body. As I explained, this did not happen overnight, and I had to question society's beliefs in beauty along with my own to get to this point. I also want to point out that this is an ongoing process. And like everyone, I still have days when I grieve my losses. But as I approach my 6-year anniversary of no evidence of cancer, I feel those losses less and less. And I try and focus on the extra 6 years I have already gained after my diagnosis. Don't get me wrong, none of this is easy. None of it. If you are feeling alone, reach out. Find someone to talk to share, to listen. It has made a tremendous difference in my recovery and allowed me to thrive instead of just surviving. Part of my thriving came from writing and publishing 2 books about my experience. And as Shay mentioned earlier, they're both available on my website. If you're in the Coachella Valley, I am happy to deliver them straight to your porch, and I can meet you. Come with a face mask. They make good gifts to friends and family that are going through this journey or need to have more information about breast implants or breast implant illness. From now until the end of May, if you purchase a copy of Bittersweet, I'm going to give you Bye Bye Boobs for free. So that starts right now and goes to the end of the month. The deal is only available on my website and does not apply to purchases on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or any other book selling platform. And it just says May special in my shop on my website. Thank you so much for allowing me to share my personal experience with body image loss and grief. I hope you will share your experiences with the women in your life that need to hear it. It is so important for us to lift each other in support, and Talk, Listen, Share is such a great platform to get these tough conversations started. I'd be happy to answer any questions about either of my books, my experience with breast cancer, breast implant illness, what it's like to be living flat and breastless, or anything else you want to ask me. Ask away. Does anybody have any questions? Or want me to elaborate on anything?
I just want to say thank you, Holly, for sharing this remarkable story. I mean, you've been through a lot, and you have the biggest smile. So thank you. And thank you for sharing this story, because it really does. I feel like by sharing our stories, we're able to create that ripple effect, because we find out, especially in the breast cancer community, that there are people that do understand what it is to go through what we do. So thank you with that. And we will be, I didn't say this in the beginning, but I also have 2 of your books, which I've read, and they're amazing. But these are brand new books that you signed for a member of tonight's viewer, one of tonight's viewers. So we'll be giving that away later on our Instagram and Facebook feeds to one lucky winner. And yes, is there anybody out there that has some comments, questions?
I think, Holly, can you mute it?
Nope, you're there.
I'm here. Okay. Holly, I think that your experience illuminates what it's kind of like a push me, pull you state of existence for this very long period of time with you. And the push me, pull you is the grief and the loss and recovery from those, and the processing of those to move on. And then there's another thing that comes in that reminds you of loss. And I also, your family experience, having so many members of your family that have been affected by cancer, is something else that just must have presented a great arc of loss and grief to you related to this horrific disease. It's wonderful to see you smiling and being so and moving forward.
Yeah.
And it's really tough to look in the mirror and see, even before many issues with your breast, to the sudden menopause.
Yeah.
So you had financial, you lost your business, or you gave up your business.
I did. I chose to give them up. Yeah.
So those things just add up. But as you said, there's a processing where I think we covered this at some topics about resilience, that humans are just kind of hardwired to, I'm going to go on and I'm going to live and I'm going to figure out how to make all of this stuff normal. And I have to commend you in doing that.
Thank you.
I have to commend you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's always felt like I just have to keep moving forward. And I know a lot of people, ask the question, why me? I never did that. I just figured, well, it is me. I don't know why. I will never know really why. I just figured I have to just always just keep looking forward and kind of keep my eye on the prize, which is, long life as far out as I can get it. And so that's what I've done. I've just kept moving forward. And And the more that I talked about it, the more that I felt like I needed to talk about it. And I literally was totally terrified of speaking in person, before. And it was the strangest thing, because when I got up the first time to speak about this, I realized how passionate I was about it and how much I wanted to speak about it. And so I've just been doing that ever since. And it really does help me, because, I'm human, and there are days when, this does feel overwhelming, but for the most part, after cancer, you just kind of have to keep moving through it. You can't, and sure, I look back, but I don't look back and then try and recreate think about how terrible it was. I just look back and go, yep, that was bad, but we're still moving forward. So.
The other thing that I heard loud and clear was the benefit of a support group when you're going through this. So to anyone that's going through cancer surgeries, cancer treatments, newly diagnosed, having a difficult time moving forward, there's nothing like the wisdom of a room of women who have had cancer or in various stages of treatment to be the guides, to be the ones who let you cry, to be the ones who have soft words, and to be the ones who say, look at me, I got through it, and I had so many of the same things that you had. As far as the feelings and the surgery and the discomfort and all of those things. So support groups are just so important, and you have to commend people that go, because a lot of people are support group resistant because people have a kind of an image of a support group as being this really downer, this rather sad experience to go into the room, or something that's going to be kind of scary, when so many times the opposite is true. It's life, it's love.
I was one of those people. I didn't want to go. I resisted for a very long time. In fact, I don't think I went until I was actually done with my treatments and my reconstruction. It wasn't, it was after cancer. It was after when I realized, that everybody else was done with the topic, and nobody wanted to hear about it anymore, because I survived. And so they figured that was it. And that's when I kind of reached out. And interestingly enough, the first support group that I went to was men and women. And it was because it was such a small town that I lived in Ojai, that it was people with all different kinds of cancers. And it was actually really nice to have men in the group as well, who had different cancers and were vulnerable, and their experiences. It all sort of, and I also love being in a group with just women too, that's with breast cancer, because that's helpful. But it's for everyone that has similar things, no matter what kind of cancer you have. So I highly recommend reaching out, because I've made some of the most amazing friends. In fact, some of my closest friends now here where we're living, we've only been here 2.5 years, are from a breast cancer survivor group, and I love them, and I can't imagine not having them in my life and not having met them. So they've just benefited me so much. And we don't always talk about cancer. We talk about other things too now, So definitely get to group if you can. Even on
there's a wonderful breast cancer information support group at Eisenhower's Lucy Ritchie Cancer Center. And that meets every Wednesday at noon. I know it's a plethora of information led by a oncologist social worker. And Rosemary, I know that's where I met you originally. So it's a wonderful group. And then we do have our Shay's Warriors private group page that also helps. And breastcancer.org has stuff out there, American Cancer Society. There are online groups too within your local community that you can find and reach out to as well.
I want to throw in there too, if breast cancer support groups you're still hesitant about them, or you really don't think that they're for you, there are other types of support out there as well. There's private therapy and go see a therapist and get that support however you need it and however you can get it and are comfortable with. Because I think it's seeing it in my patients, they definitely, if they don't have the support that they need from, at home or wherever, they still need that support and they have to get it somewhere. So definitely don't hesitate to reach out and find what is comfortable for you and what you need, whatever form that looks like.
I think that's so true. I had a lot of support. I felt like one of the lucky people who, I just had so many friends and family members who just really stepped up, and I still needed that extra support. So
That is such a blessing.
yes, it is. Definitely. Anybody have any more questions or want me to talk about anything else?
Let's see.
Nate, do we have any questions on the chat? I'll just double check here. I don't have any questions. I do have some comments from our Facebook land. Holly has shared so much wonderful information. As I've said, I've never had cancer, but this is education, and I can share it with so many friends and family that have been through cancer. I want to help as much as I can from the Midwest, and that is our friend Cardinal, who is one of our ambassadors out in Iowa. Debbie says, thank you so much, Holly. Angela says, thank you for being so candid, Holly.
Thank you for giving me that opportunity.
Great.
I just want to interject something about women that make choices to go flat and not have reconstruction. You did something that is really a wonderful intervention to help cover some things and to help make you feel more attracted, to give you that special piece of art over something that was so difficult for you, so painful. And tattooing over breast scars and is a very, very healthy intervention. And the other thing, there are tattoo artists that are very skilled at tattooing nipples, and they have 3D capacity now with tattoos, so they can construct a nipple over a surgical site. So if women don't want to go through reconstruction of the nipple after they've had implants, or if they're choosing to go flat, they can still have a nipple when they look into the mirror. So there are lots of options in tattooing in medicine, which is really interesting. We don't tend to think of it in those ways.
And Holly, I've seen your book in Bittersweet, and I've seen it in person actually. And it's amazing to me how much of almost a ritual it is to go ahead and put different things across or whatever it is, all the way up and down. I mean, it's beautiful. I have another friend who put a phoenix up and wrapped around her arm and onto her heart, but the phoenix's wings, like literally in the fire, are around their breast and goes all the way down her back.
Wow.
And it's absolutely gorgeous, and it covers the scars, but she told me she did it originally to cover the scars, but now when she looks in the mirror, she feels so empowered because she did go through flames,
Yeah.
that was her story, of course, and everybody's story is different, but it's very unique and beautiful and very ritual, I think, in everybody's world of why and what they put there. What was the reason why you put these beautiful flowers there?
I've always originally I wanted a tattoo when I was younger, and it was just not done in my family. People didn't do tattoos. So it was, you know, my mom wouldn't have been real happy about that. But, you know, later on, I have a few other little tattoos. I have a little bracelet around my wrist and things. But this is a pretty big tattoo because it, you know, it's both sides of my chest. And the reason I picked cherry blossoms is because they're like a symbol of renewal, you know, in springtime blossoming. And I just sort of felt like I was becoming a new person. Not that I'm not still the same Holly that I was before, because I am, but there's just a lot about me that's different now. And then I just felt like I sort of wanted to mark that renewal, you know, like I was up to this point, I was this, and now I'm going to be, you know, even better and covered in the cherry blossoms. And one of the things that was even more upsetting than having to take out the breast implants, because at that point I was like, if they're not working for me, I'll just take them out. But my tattoos were going to have to be like, basically, you know, when they take the implants out, there's a lot of skin and tissue that had been expanded out that's got to be removed. And I was just so upset about the idea of my beautiful tattoos being ruined. So the plastic surgeon that I chose to remove the implants and then basically reconstruct me to flat said he would do the best he could to save as much of it as he possibly could. And you know what he ended up doing? I love him so much. He made my new scars exactly where the branches were that he was removing. So the scars actually are like the same, you know, shape as the branches. So when I finally, and a lot of the blossoms disappeared, but he actually very carefully, when he was sewing me back up, matched up half of a blossom with another half all the way along. So I didn't have any blossoms that weren't attached to another half of a blossom, which was incredible. I think a lot of plastic surgeons probably would have just done their thing and then just sewn you up. But he took an extra hour and a half to really put that all back together because he knew how important it was for me. And so the second time around, when I waited a full year for my chest to heal after that to go back to the same tattoo artist. But that time around, I didn't want those new scars covered. I had kind of changed my idea of it, and they were now my scars. And so he used the scars as the shadows and just tattooed branches above them. So before, you know, the original idea was cover those scars. I don't want to see them. I kind of want this experience behind me. But then the second time around, I think it really just shows how I was able to kind of like change the way I thought about things. I didn't actually want to cover them. I wanted to still be able to see those scars and have them work in the tattoo as shadows instead. So so he did that. So I got them all put back and a few extra blossoms on top of those branches. So
Thank you for sharing. That's
Oh my gosh, that is an amazing story.
it's amazing. Yeah, he's here in California, and he was I searched out everywhere, and I went and talked to different, you know, surgeons, and he just, I don't know, you know, when you meet a doctor that you just really believe is going to do the best thing for you. And he said, I'll do my best. I can't, he said, some of it's going to have to go, but I will do my absolute best. And the nurse actually, when I was recovering in the recovery room afterwards, she came in and she said, oh my gosh, he literally took so much extra time. She said he would have been done an hour and a half earlier, but he just couldn't let it go. She said he really just became an artist and was trying to put everything back together. So I have very fond feelings for him. My husband and I actually teased afterwards that we both had a crush on him for doing such a good job.
Oh.
that makes all the difference in the world when your doctors will take that specific detailed care for you, and especially after everything you've been through, right?
That was part of it. I think he knew that I'd been through it. And honestly, my breast reconstruction with the implants, I mean, they looked gorgeous. I mean, anytime anybody saw my reconstructed chest, would say, wow, what an amazing job the plastic surgeon did. And so, you know, it was really devastating to have to undo all of that. But you know what? I'm actually happier today without them because I was having so many problems with them. And for me, it was the right choice. So
It's a decision that's becoming a lot more, I hate to use the word popular, but a lot of women are choosing to go flat
Yes.
rather than go through any type of reconstruction or grafting or any of those things. So it's an interesting switch, kind of a social dynamic of women that are saying no. Societal norms seem to be changing though in regards to breasts. I mean, Pamela Sue Anderson looks like an oddity where she used to be, you know, the queen. And if you look at high profile actresses and performers, their implantation isn't something that seems to be required anymore for that. So it's just
I have a comment and a question. Holly, thank you for sharing your story. It's amazing to hear and how powerful all of your women are. I mean, having to go through, I saw what Shay's went through and listened to so many of these stories, and it's just, you ladies are amazing. So thank you for being so vulnerable too and sharing your story. My question has to do with candy though.
Oh, let's hear it.
So I don't have a real specific one, but how is candy still involved in your life, and or what was one of your favorite things from when you owned your candy store besides bringing joy to others?
Okay.
Maybe a cute story or something about that.
It was so much fun. Honestly, it was the funnest business that I could have opened. And we had everything. I mean, we had thousands. My big thing was finding all the candies that were hard to find. I loved that, you know, to have in the candy store. And you're probably not going to believe this, but I didn't actually eat very much candy when I had the candy store. I had a rule that I wasn't going to eat any candy while I was at work because, you know, I was spending 10 hours a day there sometimes. So I wouldn't eat any candy there. If I wanted some, I'd take it home. But being around candy like that 7 days a week, you kind of, I lost my love of like the kind of junky candies, you know, the ones that are not real high quality, and really gravitated toward like the really good dark chocolates and that sort of thing.
The high end stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna have something sweet. I should really be eating some of that high end chocolate. So so in the beginning though, I was more like, oh, gummy bears and, you know, that sort of thing. And then I sort of veered, you know, after 6 years of literally being around it and bagging it and selling it and designing labels for it, I kind of just went towards dark chocolate and occasional caramel here and there.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh yeah, it was fun. And no, I'm not doing it again, by the way. People ask me all the time, aren't you gonna open a candy store again? No, I had a wonderful 6 years. I'm done.
Holly, we do have a question. This comes from one of our viewers. If I was to go, I've been looking into flat closure. What groups or how did you do your research to know it was for you?
Good question. I joined quite a few flat Facebook groups. There's a lot of them. And, you know, I joined a lot of them to begin with and then started to narrow down. Some of them weren't really my cup of tea. Other ones just had so much information and photos. And women were very candid with what was happening. A lot of the women were going flat right after a diagnosis and a double mastectomy. And then there were a lot of women like myself who had already done all of that and were now having problems with their implants and were going flat from there. So, which is, you know, two different kind of groups of people. But there's a few groups. Did she want specific groups? Because there's some specific groups that are really great. But I would just suggest getting on to Facebook and just, you know, just type in flat and it'll come up and then just, you know, experiment. The nice thing about the groups on Facebook is most of them are private. So make sure it's a private group and they only allow women. So other people can't, you know, be in those groups because women share a lot of photos. And I've been really open and honest and my photos were all out there and I did that on purpose, but I know that that's not what everybody wants to do. I think the majority of women want to keep that private, which is fine. So find a private Facebook group, type in, you know, and you can even look and see, you'll find my name in a bunch of them. And I'm a moderator on one of them as well. And they've just been really great information and support. And if you have any questions, I mean, I think the biggest question that I see all the time over and over again is, if I go flat, am I going to be happy with my flat chest? And I think, you know, that's up to you. That's up to you, whether you are going to be happy with it or not. And I rarely see women in any of the groups who aren't happy after they've gone flat, because if you choose any of the other options, you are not guaranteed that that's going to be one and done. Most of them come with multiple surgeries. I've now had 5 surgeries on my chest alone, and 6 because of the cancer. And that's a lot of surgeries. It's a lot of recovery. And there are times that I wish that I had just gone flat from the beginning, and I would have had 1 and a possible revision, and I would have been done with it all. But I chose to, you know, try it all out. So here I am. And I'm flat and happy. And I can actually, I always show people, see, you can't even really, you know, I'm completely flat, but you can't really tell. And honestly, I've been flat for exactly 2 years, and nobody has ever walked up to me and asked me, you know, or even, I don't even think anyone's even really noticed and said, you know, hey, she's flat. You just own it.
There was one group, I think, that I had prior to this conversation that I had looked at. It's called flatclosurenow.org, I believe it is. And I know they have a lot of information on their website about aesthetic flat closure, explant to flat, and unilateral with flat closure. I mean, they really, what surgeons actually do that. They had specific surgeons on there. So I know .orgs are great places to do a research. Of course, there's cancer.org, American Cancer Society, which they also have information on there. But specifically for the flat closure, I did see that flatclosurenow.org has a lot of great information on there too.
They're an amazing group, definitely. And there are all women who are flat that created the group. There's another one called Not Putting on a Shirt. And that's another woman who went flat. And that's an amazing group too. And both of them have lists of surgeons because there's a lot of issues, you know, not every surgeon has experience with doing a flat closure. And I've seen just so many pictures of women that went in hoping for a nice, flat, clean result and didn't come out with that. So the great news is they've got surgeons that know how to do this. And that's one of the reasons why I picked my surgeon, is because he had been doing a lot of explants, and he also, I think the majority of his patients were, you know, just had breast implants for cosmetic reasons, but he had done reconstruction as well. And so I went with him just because I knew that he had that experience. And so you do want somebody who's done it before, because if you can avoid having a revision, that's great. I ended up having a revision, even though I had a great surgeon. I did do a small revision about 6 months after mine, just because there are little lumps and bumps that can happen when they remove all of that tissue. And so sometimes you want a little bit cleaner results. But that was an easy, I mean, by far out of all 6 of my surgeries, that one was a piece of cake compared to all the others. So.
Well, thank you so much again, Holly. And if someone wants to get a hold of you, they go to hollykthrasher.com, correct?
Yes.
And the information is on there. Dr. Fung, when is our next Talk, Listen, and Share, and what is our topic?
Okay, our next Talk, Listen, and Share is going to be June 6th at 5:30 again. And the topic is going to be Tai Chi at home or outside. And we are going to have a special guest who's going to talk about his experience with Tai Chi, how he got into it, and do a demonstration. Probably going to be maybe like a half an hour demonstration that we all can follow. And you can do modifications, and he'll talk about that too. And the special guest actually is my husband, Michael Ye. So he actually is he knows 2 forms, like he's a master of 2 forms of Tai Chi. This is not his day job, but it is something that he really does enjoy and he is very good at. And so please join us on the 9th and enjoy some really awesome Tai Chi.
We might have to find an outdoor area that we can all enjoy within our distance apart and socially distanced and all that.
Yeah, we should. We'll talk about doing like maybe a live event sometime.
Yes, yes. We actually might have a live talk, listen, and share the month of June that even you and Rosemary aren't aware of yet.
Wow. Oh my goodness, we have to talk.
So thank you again so much, Holly. You are amazing. You are inspiring and you are uplifting and you are living life in full color. And thank you for sharing your story tonight and inspiring others to share their stories and giving them the courage to walk this path also. So thank you so much. If again, hollykthrasher.com, Bittersweet, bye bye boobs. Yes. Thank you.
And we're going to be giving away. I think we have a giveaway too. Not instantly,
We'll be
but
posting that later online.
Fun.
Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you, everyone.
Everyone. It was a great show. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.